who better to talk about this subject than with journalist based in Islamabad, Pakistan, Mr. Javed Rana. He's joining us today here through Skype. Javed, always good to see you. So, you know, I enjoy talking to you a lot to you. Now, this is going on in this, is it the southern, northeastern or southeastern, I'm not quite sure, but in a different region of India. This is not the first time we're hearing these sort of anti-Islamic, Islamophobia rhetoric coming out of India. First of all, before we get to Prime Minister Modi, let's talk about what actually happened in this region. Is it something we should be worried about?
It is a lingering source of concerns for the Muslim, but not for the rest of the world, unfortunately. What we are seeing now in India, that is just tip of the iceberg of a bigger picture. Indian government has been legislating in a manner to discriminate Muslims, in a manner that plays havoc with the values, with the ideological system of the Muslims. And this is a part and parcel of a bigger ideological agenda for BJP government. They want to basically revert back all these Muslims, 200 million Muslims in India, back to what they call their original religion of Hinduism. So that is not happening. There is obviously clear signs of resistance from the Muslims. It's not from the male only, but also from the women. They are defending their right to hijab. That is something which was not something they were expecting from the Muslims. I think there are clear signs of resistance from the Muslims, and that is why there have been protests in India against the banning of hijab in the state institutions, academic institutions. And I think this resistance is going to grow more and more in days and weeks to come, given the fact that the BJP government, their legislators, they are coming up with the kind of the rhetoric which was unheard of in the history of the humanity. Like one of the chief ministers known as a Jogi in the Uttar Pradesh province, during his election campaign a couple of years ago, he said that they would dig up the graves of the Muslim women and would rape them. So with that kind of anti-Muslim rhetoric, do you expect that the Muslims are going to put up with that situation any longer? This resistance had to happen, and we are just seeing the initial signs of this resistance. BJP government has prepared 6 million volunteers. They are there essentially to force Muslim to back to what they call their original religion. That is not going to happen. No, they have come up with a legislation where what they call love jihad, which means that no Hindu girl can marry with a Muslim boy. That is kind of the legislation they have come up with. But at the same time, behind the scene, they are encouraging Hindu youngsters to marry with the Muslim girls, to elope with them so that they can be converted back. It is a purely ideological agenda which BJP government is following, and the Jogi, the chief minister I was referring about, he is expected to succeed Prime Minister Modi. Do you think that kind of leadership in India is going to abode well for the people of India or the people across the region? That does not abode well for the entire region in a situation when there is a nuclearization of the entire region. Both Pakistan and India are nuclear countries, and if this tension persists, that means there would be migration of Muslims into Pakistan and Bangladesh, and there could be possibly a bigger conflict.
All right, that's really interesting. I've tried to get as much as I can out of that. Now, I mean, 200 million Muslims in India, do they not have representation in government? Is 200 million considered a minority for India?
In a country which is a 1.3 billion population, 200 million Muslims means that they are a minority, and they are scattered. Apart from Kashmir, I think in the rest of the states, they are not in a big number. I think because of these reasons, the BJP government has managed to exploit the situation. They have very insignificant representation in the government employment. They have very insignificant employment in other private sectors, and more importantly, they have insignificant representation representation in India's parliament, given the fact that they have come up with the kind of the constituencies in a manner where Muslims representation can be contained. I think that is where India has been having a success story. But again, the point is, first they annexed Kashmir, which is the Muslim majority state, and they are now changing the demographic of Kashmir region because they think that a majority Muslim state can cause more problems. India had to deploy nearly 1 million troops and paramilitary forces in Indian disputed Kashmir to prevent the liberation of that part of India. So I think it does not really bode well, because these extremist groups who are now in power in India, they have vowed to convert back all Muslims from all over the region, from Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, back to their original, what they call their original religion of Hinduism by 2026. And they have 6 million volunteers. So this does not really bode well for the peace of this region, and the international community is simply ignoring it because they have their economic interest is attached with India. It's a big market for them, and at the same time, American want India to counter China, and they have been using the Prime Minister Modi. So everybody is ignoring what is happening in India. I think there is a kind of silence that should not happen, and that really portray a very negative picture about the policies of the Western government. They are not going beyond just some of the anti-India statements condemning these kind of violence, but doing nothing until and unless India is economically choked by the Western powers, or at least by the Arab countries who have their economic interest in India, but they are wealthy nations. They are not doing anything. So what to talk about the Western countries?
Indeed, indeed. It's very sad indeed, and it's horrible to hear that so many countries are turning a blind eye to this very dire situation. 200 million people. It's really astonishing to think that many people are involved here. Well, Javed, as always, a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thanks for joining me here on A News. We'll talk again soon, no doubt. So take care, stay well, stay safe.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point, and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geo-strategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geo-strategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.